time to rev up and vroom with Nigel Mansell. Nigel Mansell's World Championship is a 1992 game from Gremlin, well, 1992 on the ST and Amiga, 93 for the Spectrum CPC, and might be 94 for the SNES. In an era where there were lots and lots of racing games, from things like arcade races such as Lotus 1 and 2, and right up to Formula One Grand Prix, a proper Formula One simulator. And this was Gremlin's last game published for the Amstrad CPC and the Sinclair Spectrum. And for that reason, I am going to start off on the two 8-bit home computers. Readers of your Sinclair were asked would they be interested in a Nigel Mansell racing game for the Spectrum at a time when the machine was in decline. You were asked to fill out a coupon and send it to Gremlin, and enough people sent it in that yes, it was released. It's a 128K only game. Your Sinclair say it was available on disc and tape. I'm not sure if it came out on disc. It presumably did. It was advertised. It is rather a large multi-load, even if you're playing this off an SD card today and on disc, and you'll be loading a lot off your cassette. So you've got all the tracks from Nigel Mansell's World Championship winning year. Of course, I'm going to start off at Silverstone, and we're going to try and show the same track across all the versions here. So, yeah, I mean, this is looking quite different for a Spectrum game, unless you discount Super Monaco Grand Prix. It's a down in the cockpit racer at a time when you may have played F1 GP on your mate's ST and Amiga. Frame rate is, yeah, but this is the Spectrum, of course. Graphics are clear. They are monochrome and the same colour scheme on every level. And yes, it is easy to go to the back of other cars, because on the easiest difficulty settings, the other cars are going very slowly. I should have gone through one then. I didn't. You see, sometimes here on the Spectrum, it's a bit hit and miss on whether you pass or not, because sometimes if you're close, it looks like you've gone through them, but other times you'll hit them in the back, and they come towards you quite fast. Over to the CPC version. We will return to the Spectrum version in a bit, where I do have the disc version here, and there's a lot of disc turning over. It uses both sides of a 3-inch disc. That's 360k. If you use both sides, game probably doesn't use quite all of that, but it gives you an idea of how severe the multi-load is on tape. CPC version is very, very blue. Very blue. But it's not unattractive. It is, however, like the Spectrum version, annoyingly easy to hit the opponent cars, because they're just, given the frame rate and the slow speed they're going, they're just up on you in no time at all. There is no C64 version. Apparently there was one in development, and supposedly it was looking very promising, but that would be the first instance of a game like this on the C64 looking promising, or even having moving graphics. And if it was looking so good, then why wasn't it released? Over to the 16 bits with the Atari St, and you get a nice picture of Nigel Mansell and his moustache. Last World Championship winner to have a moustache, I think, possibly. Need someone who knows something about Formula One here, or modern Formula One, like Mr. PSP. But I will persist. And that dodgy thing in the old days where Fuji Television of Japan were licensing the rights to Formula One to computer games, and Bernie Ecclestone put a stop to all that, didn't he? Little loophole that was exploited. You can race the World Championship, you can race on a single circuit. You can also choose to improve with Nigel Mansell's world, where he will train you to be a better driver. There's a driving school option. And this is what training with Nigel Mansell at his driving school is like. A kind of elongated Nigel Mansell head in the top, wiggles its chin. It's like it's Nigel Mansell's eyes, but Jimmy Hill's face. Avoid objects. That's a good tip, Nigel. Brilliant. Try keeping on the road. Another enlightening tip from Nigel there. So that's what the training looks like. You're not going to be doing that other than to get familiar with the car. And you do have to set up the cars as well before you start. I didn't show that on the Spectrum and Amstrad just so we could get straight into the game. But all the versions of this game have this screen. 3 different tyres, 1 wet and 2 for dry. Gear ratios. The basically downforce on the back with the aerofoils, and if an automatic or manual gears. So on the grid at Silverstone, it's a rainy day, so we've got wet tyres on. And off we go. So this will affect the handling. And the thing about this game is, it does do something that Formula One Grand Prix does not do. The weather can change during a race. Whereas you could be doing 70 laps of something or other in Formula One Grand Prix, it's dry all the time or it's wet all the time. So you just stay on one type of tyre. Whereas this, if it starts raining, you may need to come in and change tyres. And likewise, when it becomes dry, is when you need to change tyres again. Amiga version with a much easier on the ear version of the tune. There are 2 versions on the Amiga, the AGA and Standard. And we're starting off on my A600 here in Standard Amiga mode, 32 colour. So still a little bit choppy, but then again you expect it on an A600. And this is the A1200 version running on my admittedly accelerated Amiga 1200, although remember it'd still be faster than A600 anyway, even if I hadn't done all that. So you've got more gradiated colour on the circuit as we head down towards Bridge Corner, as we go right, one of the I think the greatest corners in Grand Prix, but one that lasted a relatively short amount of time because the corner was taken away. Well, it was modified first because it was a bit dangerous, and then they took it away, but yeah. So we're coming down towards the final straight on Silverstone. We've got a name of that. And here we are on the PC, running on my DX4100, but I've turned the caching off, so it should be running about 50 megahertz, which is not an unreasonable speed for a machine in 1993, 1994. Does support ad-lib and all that, but here I am with my PC beeper. Must get one of those parallel port expansions one of these days, but so much to do for the channel. So many things to get. You do get the weather report before you start, including if the weather's going to be changeable. And look at that nice, much larger picture of Nigel. Grey sky here in VGA. I'm just waiting. I'm going to be playing this on keyboard. Car's not very responsive turning left and right. He's using the colours on the circuit like the AGA Amiga version does. And this is the old Silverstone. Well, Silverstone's changed so much over the years, like I was saying with Bridge Corner. But it's been... in the last 10 years or so, I think they changed it so much, it's pretty much unrecognisable, really. Super Nintendo version, which also, there was an advert starring Rick Mail for this game. So it's all looking very similar. Same kind of screens. You get a few differences with the racing drivers between versions. Nothing major. I think one of them doesn't have Schumacher, some of them do. It just depends on what year the game came out. And look at this on the SNES. It's lovely and smooth. Compare that to the standard ST and Amiga versions. And suddenly, it's, well, a completely different game. Assuming it's using the SNES's scaling here to do all this, but it's a world apart. It's the same game with the same faults. It doesn't quite know if it wants to be an arcade racer or a simulator, with all the tyre changing and so on. But you can't deny this SNES version is awfully polished. I've managed to get hold of a flash card so we can look at the Megadrive version rather than me having to buy the cartridge like I had to for Test Drive 2. Interesting to see how this will compare to the Super Nintendo version. Will it be more like the ST and Amiga, or will it scale like the SNES? I think I can probably guess. Mind you, Micro Machines that screen, doesn't it? And it's very different. You've got a view from behind, like when you activate that particular view in Formula One Grand Prix. And because it is from behind, it seems to achieve a better frame rate. And the circuit seems incredibly small. In fact, some of these circuits do seem quite small. Back on the Spectrum, as we go round corner there. Oh, but I am in third. And we should be heading up towards Bridge in a minute. There we go, Bridge. It appeared in 2 frames and went. On the CPC, same thing. It looks very similar, doesn't it, really? Frame rate is an issue, but it's going to be on these 8-bits. The last game Gremlin published for them came out in '93. In the ST in the Rain. If you like these kind of reviews on real hardware, and I always have to mention the real hardware because there's always someone in the comments who says, change the settings on your emulator. Then you can support the channel on Patreon. You get previews and the occasional exclusive on there, and various other bits and bobs as well. Details in the description below, and thanks to everybody who supports. And the same on, and here we are on the A600. Bridge goes past. Adverts for Zool on the side of the road. AGA version again. It's curious, really. The game does improve with the better frame rate. Although that said, here we are on the PC, and I'm beginning to notice that my hands aren't moving on the steering wheel. On the corners, basically, you only need to put a little bit of input in because it doesn't seem to steer. It seems to steer itself. If you're going around mild corners, you don't need to touch the controls. It's completely unresponsive. The car isn't twitchy like a Formula One car should be. Perhaps it's better on joystick. I don't know. Right, through Bridge on the SNES. And again, this confusion whether it's a simulator or it isn't. And we've been told to pit because our tyres have worn out after 4 laps. Tyres wearing out after a few laps. They're Michelins. And so when you pitch, you get a choice of what tyre you're going to onto. That's the wrong choice. I probably should have gone soft, but never mind. No refueling. Was this the I don't think this was the refueling era. Was it? I get confused. On the Megadrive, on what is seemingly a different game, really. It's curious. It really is. Why did they do it? Is this a reskinned game from something else? Seems odd Gremlin would do that. Through Bridge there. Round you go. And it's wet, so you get water effects behind your car. But we are doing a lap of Silverstone in something like probably... hang on, is the start-finish position in the right place on the Mega Drive? I'm very confused about this particular layout of Silverstone they've got on this version. That's the start-finish line, and I've finished the race in third. That Martin Brundle first. Far-fetched. And yeah, on a lot of these versions you will be staring at Nigel's moustache a lot, especially if you're running off a floppy disk. The loading times on the ST and Amiga floppy versions are just interminable, let alone the 8-bit multi-loads. And the drivers get to have a little driver rave as well. Back on the Specky version, and this is Canada, which is always a driver's favourite, and one of my favourites to drive as well. And here we are in the rain on the Spectrum. And how many Spectrum games actually racing games trying to depict rain? Oh, it stopped. So but you actually have the variable weather, even on the Spectrum version, which again is just nice. It's as close as you're going to get to the 16-bit big box racers on the Spectrum and CPC. But you are going to have to put up with this frame rate. And this is Interlagos on the Amstrad CPC. And the track layouts the corners are in the right place. They're generally faithful across the Spectrum and Amstrad versions. Probably more so than probably any other racing game I've played on them. Canada on the ST. And again, it's recognised me Canada, and I've got a tyre warning. So I'm going to have to pit. Again, tyres worn out on lap 2. There only appears to be one bridge graphic, which they appear to use on all the circuits where required. Right, how does this pitting work? No, we're going to pull in, right, okay, there's actually a pit lane. Oh, I've hit a cut. Okay, well, that's fine. Doesn't matter how you stop, all that matters is stopping. Oh, and there we go, right. All the other cars, I need to check this, but certainly a lot of these versions, all the other cars are the same colour, so you don't really know if you're overtaking Michael Schumacher, if he's on your version or not. And you can't customise any driver name apart from your own. So you think that'd be a McLaren when they're in the proper colours, not that hideous silver abomination they have now. If we see another car, I suspect that's also red. Final lap. PC version where the car basically doesn't steer itself, but I just don't feel like I'm in control on the keyboard controls. Perhaps it's different on joystick. If you hold the wheels down, the car moves like a juggernaut, like a lorry. It's not a twitchy Formula One car that can spin on a sixpence. It just... Oh, I've got heavy damage. Enter pit. And the thing about damage is the damage becomes easier the higher difficulty you're on as well. So in easy mode, or standard mode, you can just basically hit everything. And then eventually you'll get damage. And also other cars will drive slower as well. SNES version on Spa. Just want to see what the track layout looks like here. Spa, most famous for that tight right turn and then dropping down at full speed down the hill and back up without hopefully lifting off. So round we go. So again, it's vaguely accurate. It's not Formula One Grand Prix accurate. So you're not really going down here. And there's no significant twist there. Or was that it? Yeah, it's kind of... Yeah. Certainly on the SNES, not all the other cars are red. But you've still really got no idea who you're overtaking. There's no ability to properly identify them like you can with Formula One Grand Prix, where if you're unsure, you just press the forward cursor and you get a view of that car and you go, I'm about to overtake Gerhard Berger. On the Mega Drive. Imagine being a Mega Drive owner and then your SNES owning mate with his version coming around your house and him seeing this and just laughing in your face when you've paid the same money. Speaking of paying the same money, on the 16 bits the game cost $29.99, the same as Formula One Grand Prix, and then £5 more than Lotus, which is a bit of a problem when you come to think about it, because this isn't Formula One Grand Prix level of value, is it? Nigel Mansell's training school on the SNES. Nice picture of Nigel there, grinning. I imagine he's looking at a nice sandwich. I'm going to eat that nice sandwich. And Nigel's up there, and he doesn't look like Nigel. He looks like an elderly Philip Schofield. And on the SNES, what you have to do is follow Nigel in his car. So you can learn how to drive. He'll always be the same distance ahead of you. And he will bark orders at you when you get it wrong.
Good. Yeah.
I say Nigel will bark orders. A Gremlin staffer will bark orders at you.
Good.
I mean, Nigel, you couldn't even go down to Gremlin and record a little bit of audio. Oh, hang on, you couldn't even appear in the advert.
Back.
Could have had Rick Mail shouting at you, imagine that.
Good.
Back on the Specky, and this is what happens when you win a race. Fidel Castro appears to be, well, yeah. Your opponents all look at Fidel Castro and you look a little bit like Nigel Mansell. On the 16-bit versions, if you win, you get your national anthem. Nigel Mansell's World Championship. It's a very interesting game. The last 8-bit game from Gremlin for the Spectrum and CPC. And yes, on those systems, the game sure enough has shortcomings, and it's not as fun as more arcade-style races like Continental Circus, but it is the closest you're going to get to the likes of Formula One Grand Prix on your 8-bit microcomputer, but you're going to have to put up with that frame rate and the shortcomings with the track width to be able to get past cars and so on, and all the other cars looking the same. But it has weather, it has tyre changes, it has a level of simulation not seen on other 8-bit races. However, on these two 8-bit versions, be aware if you're on tape that multi-load is horrific, and there's still plenty of waiting around if you're on floppy disk, and that goes for the ST and Amiga as well. You can be staring at Nigel's moustache for a very long time. ST and Amiga versions. What is this game? It costs $29.99. That's Formula One Grand Prix money. For £5 NES, you get Lotus. Vroom exists. If you want to go on Bytes, there's no second price. There's a wealth of excellent racing games available. And here's Nigel Mansell, which is neither one thing nor the other, nor doing it particularly well. There is one unique feature in that the AGA Amiga version looks particularly attractive, but that's all I can really say for it. PC version, which granted only played on keyboard, the game appeared to drive itself round corners, certainly smaller corners. Only on the harder corners did I need to put any input into the keyboard. Perhaps that's different to a joystick, but I don't have a joystick on my Dell laptop, so that's the end of that. Again, Formula One Grand Prix exists, and it's the same money. Why are you playing Nigel Mansell? You can set up Formula One Grand Prix effectively as an arcade game with all the crashes and things turned off. So why on earth are you playing Nigel Mansell if you want a more arcadey style experience? Mega Drive version, well, yeah. I'm astonished really that went out. It's your SNES only mate, if he had the game, would be laughing in your face. The Amiga and ST owners would be laughing in your face. Super Nintendo version is the most impressive of all of these. It moves incredibly well. The kind of movement in those days you'd usually only see in arcade machines. It does have its shortcomings, but it's trying to embrace a more arcade-style racer. I can at least see what they're trying to do here on the SNES, and of all these versions, this is the version I had the most fun on. looking across the board, the problem with Nigel Mansell is that it's not a championship winner. Indeed, it's not a footwork or, kind of back of the grid type stuff, but it is just an also ran.